Well, let's jump into the top 10, and we are going to do something a little bit different this year that we just did.
Curveball.
Yeah, we came out. I just came up with this 2 seconds ago. What we're going to do, like the mock draft, we're going to give our personal top 10s, and then we're going to come out with the graphics and give the official top 10. So, Ricky, give us your top 10 so people know where you put people where and where they can yell at you for saying you had yada yada at 6 instead of 7.
It's funny because I look at number 9 on my list, and he was literally in the last segment that we talked about. But
this is why I want to mention it.
Starting at number 10, I've got Toronto Raptor Kyle Lowry. Then at number 9, Darren Collison, who I just talked about, from the Indiana Pacers. Then number 8, Ben Simmons from the 76ers. What did I say that was funny?
Darren Collison.
Yeah,
The fact that you're Darren Collison.
In your top 10.
Yeah, okay.
So I smacked myself.
Yeah, I did. Well, I looked and I was like, all right, did I say something stupid? But
Nope.
Ben Simmons, number 8, 76ers. John Wall, the Washington Wizard, at number 7. Kemba Walker at number 6, Charlotte Hornets. Dame Lillard from the Portland Trailblazers, number 5. CP3 getting injured all the time from the Rockets. He's at number 4. Kyrie Irving of the Celtics at 3.
Also getting injured all the time.
Also getting injured all the time. Russ at 2. And then still the king of my point guards for the 3rd year in a row, Steph Curry. I own your shoes.
Has he not been the king of the point guards for any of us? Oh, Dave, you had Russ last year at number 1.
Triple double. Did it again.
Give us your, and he's lower for doing it again.
Yep.
Give us your top 10.
Not as cool as second time around. Kyle Lowry, number 10. Goran Dragic, the All-Star, at number 9. Ben Simmons, the non-All-Star, at number 8. Dame Lillard at 7 because he choked in the playoffs. Kemba Walker at 6. John Wall, number 5. Injuries regardless. Kyrie Irving at 4. Chris Paul, 3. Russell, triple-double. Westbrook at 2. Steph Curry 1.
The sequel sucked.
Dave, I don't want to hear that disrespect for Ben Simmons. You might offend some people out there, mainly Jake.
I'm looking at you, Jake.
I don't know what's wrong with what Dave
There was
said.
nothing disrespectful. It was
No,
just
the
what
way
happened.
he was like the All-Star, the non-All-Star.
Who was the 2017 NBA All-Star?
All right.
Or on Dragic.
All right.
Are you getting
Who
mad
was
at me for
not
stating facts?
A 2017.
Jake
This
is,
is
yes.
not fake news, people. Here's my top 10. Number 10, I have Mike Conley. It's where he deserves to be in the top 10. Number 9, we have Kyle Lowry. At number 8, we have Ben Simmons. At number 7, we have Kemba Walker. At 6, we have John Wall. At 5, we have Dame Lillard. 4, we have Kyrie Irving. At 3, we have Chris Paul. 2, we have Russ Westbrook. And at 1, we have Steph Curry. And then for the official rankings, this is where we put all of those.
Did you want a drum
rankings
roll
together.
and then you didn't confidently
did a
put
little
in a
bit.
drum roll?
Then for the official ranking. Well, I don't want to do it too loud because then it actually picks up on the mic. It sounds horrible. But then now for the official rankings, where we take all those top 10s and all the numbers and all the position rankings and put them into a list. At number 10 of the Miami Heat, we have Goran Dragic. At number 9, we have Kyle Lowry of the Toronto Raptors. At 8, we have Ben Simmons of the 76ers. At 7, we have Kemba Walker of the Charlotte Hornets. At 6, we have John Wall. At number 6, we have John Wall of the Washington Wizards. At 5, we have Dame Lillard of the Portland Trailblazers. Shut up. At 4, we have Kyrie Irving of the Boston Celtics. At 3, we have Chris Paul of the Houston Rockets. At 2, we have Russ Westbrook of the OKC Thunder. And at 1, we have Steph Curry of the Golden State Warriors. The biggest thing that I did want to throw out there, outside of Darren Collison being at 9, was the fact that John Wall is ranked, I feel, very low. Ricky, you had him below Kemba Walker. And Dave, you had him, I think, properly ranked, at least having him at 5. But why do you have John Wall below Kemba Walker?
For me, coming into this year from last year, I'm just personally, people can say I'm biased. I'm just coming off of injury. I'm not high on John Wall. I feel like if you look at it, he is definitely, to me, at the highest you can have him is 6. I don't think he's a top 5 point guard coming into this
Blasphemy.
year. I think it's Steph, Russ, Kyrie, Chris Paul, and then Dame, or you could make the argument for maybe a Kemba Walker, but Dame would be the one that I'd put in there. Those are the 5, any order you want.
Here's what I want to say about that is that here is John Wall after he returned from injury because he was stupid good. A game against Cleveland, he played 38 minutes, shot 50% from the field, 40% from 3, then had 14 assists and 28 points. Then against Boston, so 2 playoff teams, 36 minutes played, 56 from the field, 80% from 3, 12 assists, 3 steals, and 29 points. And then in the playoffs, he averaged 26 points, 11.5 assists, 2.3 steals, 1.3 blocks, 5 boards, shot 44% from the field, and had a bad 19% from 3. But John Wall wasn't bad when he came back from
I'm not
injury.
saying he's bad. I just like Kemba Walker and Damian Lillard over him.
Sure, you like
why?
guys who just aren't as good as him.
Yeah, that's the thing is John Wall is, I think, arguably a top 5 point guard. He's just outside at 6. I put him outside at 6 too. I Dame over him. But I look at John Wall, and I mean, John Wall is one of the best facilitators, has been one of the best facilitators in the league for the past 4 years, and is a guy that can get you 20 points per game. And Kemba can't do that.
Another thing, too, and this is not everything that went into it, but it kind of, to me, was like, whoa, when I saw it, where it's like, for the entire year, and I know he was injured and only played 41 games, you had John Wall at like a 19.2 per, and then you had Dame at 25, you had Kemba a little bit higher at 20, and that was like one where I could see me switching Kemba and John Wall, but I wouldn't put him in the top 5 coming into this year.
And the biggest thing, at least for me, Dave, because you had John Wall above Dame.
Yeah.
And you, this is something where we can kind of get into.
You
and
read off John Wall's playoff stats. Damian Lillard's not as flattering.
Dave's just upset that Damian Lillard got shut down by Rondo last year.
Here's the thing that
Andrew
I do
Holiday.
want to I want to throw out, and I don't want this to come into the Colin Cowherd argument of John Wall, because his argument borders on racism and just being a bigot.
Ignorance, yes.
But with John Wall, I feel like he isn't that guy that he can put up stats. He can be a guy that comes out there every single day. But I don't think he's a guy that at least adds that leadership to a team like Dame does. Not saying he isn't a great leader, but I think Dame, there is something about him where he carries a presence about him. He goes out there and he comes out and he consistently leads his team to the playoffs. And maybe this is a more a beneficial, at least more showing of his coach. And Terry Stotts rather than Scott Brooks, but I just see that Dame's team consistently wins more. They consistently go out there. They have better records in a better conference in the Western Conference. And then you look at John Wall; they're a team that again is lower half of the Eastern Conference. And again, maybe this is because of their coaching, but it's not like they have drastically different rosters. But if you look at Bradley Beal and CJ McCollum, they're two duos, very similar players in that aspect as well, and arguably they're probably better fits next to each other as well. Beal's a great shooter, working off ball against John Wall, and obviously, CJ can be a guy that passes and helps Dame as well. So it's something that. What do you think the difference between those two is, where you have John Wall above him? I put Dame above John Wall because of his leadership, or at least his perceived leadership. Why do you have John Wall above Dame?
I have John Wall above Dame because I think that he is the better facilitator. I think he, at times, can be a better leader. The problem with John Wall is that he is someone who voices his frustration publicly to his team, and that can be seen as immature and maybe not the right way to do things. So, at times he can be better, at times he can be worse. So I'll give you that. Like, the public perception of Dame being a guy for Portland, 100% agree. Like, he is that guy. The problem for me is I look at John Wall and I go, you are on this team and you had the best pick and roll guy in Marcin Gortat. Like, you guys hated each other and you still played this well. And you're putting up with a guy, Bradley Beal, who is immature, just as immature as you, if not more. And you're both arguing over who's the most alpha. Like, you've got all this internal drama, and I think you hit on a point with the coaching, and maybe the coach being a huge factor here, because someone like, I can't even remember names, Stotts?
Yeah, Terry Stotts is the coach of the Blazers.
Yeah, someone like Terry Stotts, you don't hear much coming out of that. I don't know if this is because we don't get a lot of West Coast media, but I don't hear as much about drama coming out of that team as I do about the fights and the issues going on in Washington. That always seems very public. That always seems to come up every year for the last 3 years. We've heard some sort of rumblings of unhappiness, and obviously the Otto Porter contract last year, where they're going to get the awfulness. But
even then,
he's an efficient player.
But even then, with Portland, they have a terrible contract and never turn.
Oh, they have
and even
terrible
and Myers
contracts.
Leonard as well.
Yeah, that's their problem. So no, I think it's an awesome comparison. The one thing I will give credit to Dame is, if there's anyone who goes shot for shot with somebody like Steph, it is Dame. The problem is that in the playoffs, literally the last thing I remember seeing was him just being absolutely wrecked, and to the point where he was discouraged enough where they're playing 4v5 offense, and CJ was the one who actually stepped up, and CJ was the guy who became a leader during that playoff series, And instead, that's not what I want to see out of my leader.
But even then, that was one playoff series that lasted, what, 4 games, right?
Yeah, it was a sweep. That says something.
But let's go back to the 2014 playoffs where Dame is the guy out there hitting the game-winning shot over a team that was led by James Harden and Dwight Howard.
The Rocket one?
Yeah, the Rocket one where he gets the inbound and he hits that miraculous shot
it's recency
and gets
bias,
the winner.
Sean. Let me have my recency bias.
But is it recency bias that he isn't, again, a leader in the playoffs? Or can you say that throughout his career?
I can't say it throughout his career. Because it's
so it
mixed
is
results.
recency bias.
I said it is. Let me have my recency bias. You just talked about John Wall popping off during the playoffs, having great series towards the end of the year.
This is heading into the season, so
it is.
Fair.
It's the lasting memory. Lasting memory in my head is John Wall being out there doing everything he can. Even like last year playoffs where he was out, like he had nothing left, and he's out there trying as hard as he can to fight and struggle to keep that Washington team alive. And you felt for him because you know it wasn't going. You knew he wasn't feeling a shot, but he was still taking every shot that he could to try to keep them in there. Where Dame, when his team was down and out, was like walking back on defense, walking back on offense even, and letting CJ carry the load and letting CJ try to lead that team back into it. So that's the kind of difference that I saw between the last 2 years.
That's fair. I think that, again, the John Wall Dame is close.
Yes,
but
absolutely. I mean, these are like personal preference, splitting hairs kind of things.
But here's the thing is that, and this is weird because I pride myself on being a Kemba Walker fanboy.
Yeah.
I pride myself on my love of Kemba Walker.
It's true.
I had the Kemba Walker the lowest. And Ricky, you had John Wall below Kemba Walker, and Dave, you had Damian Lillard below Kemba Walker.
Yeah.
What am I missing on Kemba Walker? Because I feel at least Dame and John Wall are on a different level than
he needs
Kemba
more
Walker.
centers to pass to. That was the goal.
The thing with Kemba Walker is like, the thing I love about the Dame John Wall discussion is like, while you guys were arguing, I was looking at like how their teams have done since they've gotten there. They're eerily similar. Like
they're literally the East and West Coast teams of each other.
Once they started like making the playoffs, because like John Wall came in 2010, it was 13, 14, 12th in the East. Then it's like a 5th seed, 10th seed. Then a 4 seed, and 8th seed. You look at Portland, an 11 seed Dame's rookie year, then 5-4, 5-8-3. Like where last year was the best that they have finished with Dame on that team. And I mean, with Kemba Walker, I look at it like the true shooting last year was better. The per was a little bit better. So that's why really the big thing with me with that was Lillard compared to John Wall. The thing with Kemba Walker, I think people just overlook is he is on a worse team than Dame and John Wall.
By far, yeah.
And I am going to start with Kemba Walker, not holding. I know they got Mitch Kupchak now, but I'm not going to hold Michael Jordan's mistakes against Kemba Walker.
But they also rely more on John Wall and Dame Lillard. I mean, they have higher usages than Kemba Walker. So it's not like, I mean, Kemba Walker isn't a guy that is getting massive usage numbers. He's never had a usage over 30 where John Wall and
bizarre,
Dame have. So it's something where, again, he isn't seen, at least in the offenses that he's been working in prior. This could change with the new head coach in Charlotte. He's never been seen as a guy that is going to be consistently being a ball dominant guy.
And with two guys we're talking about, like you said, Dame and John Wall, you use the word alpha, word Kemba, we're not using that word.
And I think the reason why, and this isn't a disrespect to Kemba Walker, because again, I love him. But I think that Dame and John Wall are superstars. I mean, John Wall is a guy that has been consistently in the spotlight since his Kentucky days. Dame is a focal point athlete for Adidas. I mean, all the guys above him, too, are guys that have big shoe deals. I mean, Chris Paul is a guy that is a massive superstar. Russ, clearly, massive superstar. And Steph is the face of Under Armour, even though that doesn't speak too much with the way that they've been going. But again, I mean, really, Kemba isn't that superstar level.
Right. He's like low-key really good, though. That's the sort of thing. He's always flown under the radar
since
his college days.
He's a star, not a superstar.
Yeah, and that's I think the team makeup makes a lot out of it. But the fact that when you see usually if there's one position that you can take your team to the next level on your own back, it's point guard. It's ball in my hands. I'm going to do this. We saw it in the early days. And I don't want to make any like direct player comparisons, more of just this is a point guard who was able to do it on their own kind of thing. Like you looked at the AI days when he was one point guard. His usage went through the roof, and he carried a team of role players into the playoffs.
Yep.
And when you see guys able to do something like that, I look at Kemba Walker, and I look at his usage. You brought up, I didn't even realize how low it was up until you brought it up, was why aren't they running offense to him? Why isn't he given the reins to just do things? Like, I don't understand. I don't understand this team's decision making with a lot of things, but like even on the court, when are we going to see him this year getting more reigns, because this is his contract year pretty much, where it's like, can we sell high to get rid of, Batum and something?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know.
He's in a weird place.
If it speaks too much, I mean, he is the leading scorer in the history of the Charlotte Hornets. I mean, it's not too great of a history. I mean, the Wizards do have a little bit of a more deeper history, and Portland clearly does as well with Bill Walton and Clyde, obviously, there as well.
Mm-hmm.
These guys are so similar, but I think the one thing that does kind of separate them is that star factor. And Kemba, his biggest star factor was his college days, was that run he had at UConn, where Dame has that big shot in the playoffs, where Dame has been a 27-point scorer, and John Wall has consistently been in the spotlight and consistently been a playoff performer.
20 and 10 guy for 3 years in a row. I mean, that's something.
I just think that John Wall is. I don't know if John Wall's disrespected. I think Kemba Walker might be a little bit overrated, but then again, it kind of worked itself out in the actual rankings where it went Dame, John Wall, and then Kemba. Next guy I want to talk about is Ben Simmons. We have him at 8. Sophomore player, highest sophomore that we have. I think he's the youngest player that we have this high as well. Next closest would probably be Jamal Murray. But Ben Simmons is still even younger than Jamal Murray. Is it too high for Ben Simmons being at 8? Because technically he's not a traditional point guard.
I mean, just because he's 6'11" doesn't mean he's not traditional.
It's just weird.
He's just Magic Johnson-esque. That's all.
Yeah.
Like, except he can't shoot, which he needs to
Magic wasn't a great shooter to start his
Magic
career either.
You're right, actually. That's a good point. I think the free throw line is the scariest thing. Like, if he can get over his shot road, like, because the free throw line, that's just repetition. Once you get into a groove, you go. That's something you can train yourself.
If he doesn't have the yips at the free throw line?
I don't think it's the yips. I think it's just he needs to get comfortable with a clean shot, because he never developed an outside shot. So when he got forced to go to the line, he doesn't have like a go-to move that like he's in a comfort zone. So I think if he can get that free throw percentage up, I'm less afraid. If he can develop a better outside game, great. Do I think he needs to be a 3-point shooter at 30%? No. I weirdly think that like he can get by for another year without having a shot from 3-point.
Well, the biggest thing with him is that he's already a top 10 point guard without having an outside shot.
That's the weirdest thing ever.
The thing is that if he develops an outside shot, then he might jump into, and this might be at least somewhat crazy to say, but he might jump into top 3 territory because of think about it.
You're right. Because Chris Paul, another year older,
an elite defender this year. He's a better defender than Steph, a better defender than Russ.
A lot of people are better
than maybe, but again,
you're trying to go for the top 3.
I'm just trying to at least compare him. Not a better defender than Chris Paul. I'm never going to take that away, even though Chris Paul is slower. But Ben Simmons has shown his ability of being a dominant ball passer, of being an unstoppable force driver to the rim. I mean, I'm not saying that it's ever going to happen, but if he develops an outside shot and can shoot, Russ levels of shooting, he might end up being a top 3-point guard, because not only if he develops a shot, that's going to get easier for him to drive to the basket.
I was just saying for this next year. I don't know if he's going to have a clear 3-point shot.
If he develops a 3-point shot,
I think he's going to get there, and I think he will be a top 3-point guard in the league. 100%. I believe that.
Well, my question is, and this is what I was thinking, kind of to go more towards you, because I feel like 8 is the highest you can have Ben Simmons. Because I'm going to change what I said a little bit, because I'm going to move Dame a little bit, but how I see our rankings is, for me personally, the top 4, they're solidified in any order you want: Steph, Russ, Kyrie, and Chris. Then the next 3, any order you want: Lillard, Walker, Wall, then Ben Simmons. My question for this year is, will we see enough from Ben Simmons to where, not necessarily breaking into that top 4, but will next year, when we're at this time, will he be in the Wall, Walker, Lillard range, to where it's like we've put him into where maybe he jumps a John Wall, maybe he jumps a Kemba Walker, and he's then knocking on the door to the top 4?
I don't know what it's going to take for Ben Simmons next year to jump those players. That's the thing that I look at, because Ben Simmons, again, this was technically his rookie year, at least his first year in the NBA. I'll say that because I don't want to piss people
Utah?
off with saying that.
Yeah, well, he wasn't a rookie.
Just any people.
Because Donovan Mitchell didn't win because he's not the best
rookie of the year, so he was a rookie. But
Mitch.
okay, but one was
he was
rookie
worse.
of the year, and it's Ben Simmons.
I'm just backing up my friends in Utah.
And we're just saying he was worse than Ben Simmons in his rookie year.
And one has the rookie of the year title, and it's Ben Simmons.
Yep.
But again, I don't know what he can do to at least become a top 5 point guard, or at least get into that Wall, Lillard, and Walker area. Does it mean he needs to become more efficient and shoot 60% from the field, and again become better at the free throw line and take down
if he
turnovers?
cleans up the free throw line,
maybe.
that's gonna get him up to 19 points a game range just from nailing a couple more shots. So that's the thing. I look at him and I think he can easily be like a 29 and 9
point
guy.
total that he needs to get to? Like that's the thing
but he's at what 16, 8, and 8.
Right? 16, 8, and 8.
That's disgusting. Can we
16,
just
8, and 8, near 2 steals and near a block a game.
Yeah, that's fucking disgusting.
But with 3.4 turnovers. And no shot.
Whoa, 3.4.
But I'm saying again, we're talking.
That's a 3-to-1 ratio.
We need to nitpick when it comes to you top 10.
I know. You're right. But the thing I'm looking at is going, if he can score a little more, I could see him jumping Kemba. Because I think that his team, by virtue of being a better team, he will be in the playoffs. He will have more chances to prove himself. I think that Kemba's the low man on the totem pole. And again, we talked about this. He has a shitty team. He's not a superstar. Ben Simmons, quiet, but he is incredibly popular. And I think that's going to keep growing because I think his team's going to keep winning.
The biggest thing, too, for Ben Simmons,
you're saying who he's dating?
his usage was only 2.2 or 22.3.
I totally forgot about that.
I mean, he had a
that's the thing.
5% difference between Kemba Walker.
Yeah.
So if his usage does go up to near that 27% range, and they give him those ranges.
Yeah, him and Joe is the weirdest combo that works right now because they both have to play inside mostly. Yes, I know Joe has an outside shot, but still, that's
it's nothing majorly efficient.
It's not worth it yet. So I know they're reliant on JJ. They were last year. His outside shooting was key for them. So yes, if Ben Simmons continues to kind of slide that usage over from JJ to him, dude, he's already something special. Like that, I can't not gush about this. I wish Jake was on just to just clip Jake.
It's going to be interesting to see what happens with Ben Simmons. I want to see more from Ben Simmons because he was fantastic to watch consistently, and I think consistency is going to be a big key for him.
But it looks like effortless at times, even. Like he just has like a calm to him.
Well, I think he has some of that superstar again shine to him.
Yeah.
Where we see these guys and it just looks effortlessly how quickly they get to the bucket and can score.
Yeah.
And sometimes it does look at least more effortlessly than Giannis even scoring. Like Ben Simmons, one thing that is massive about him is his fluidity playing basketball.
Yeah.
Where Giannis is still learning how to be a guy that can be a facilitator and drive to the bucket. And be a monster. Now, he's shown major flashes and it's disgusting. Giannis is going to be, I think, if we do small forward rankings, probably the second small forward because now we're moving Braun to the power forward. So, I mean,
you're
Giannis is a fantastic player. No one take that away from it. But Ben Simmons has a fluidity to him that is absolutely marvelous. But let's jump into a different discussion, and that is Ricky putting Kyrie over Chris Paul. Dave and I had Chris Paul above Kyrie. Obviously, it was a 3 versus 4. Ricky, you had Kyrie at 3, Chris Paul at 4. Why do you make that distinction? Why do you think Kyrie is above Chris Paul?
For me, it basically comes down to, like, if I'm looking at the two, age, first off, age comes into a big part of it, where CP3, you got your contract. That contract that you wanted by basically moving the things with the CBA to make sure you can get that one last big contract. Where Kyrie Irving, I know he was injured last year, but he is one of the hottest commodity names that we are star-wise that we're talking about. And for me, I just feel like coming into this year, if I were to pick which one I want on my team, I'm going to pick Kyrie. Yeah, they were both injured, but Kyrie's younger, and CP3 has a bigger history, a longer history of injuries than Kyrie, although he has been injured through his career as well.
I will say that's the thing
high school.
That's the thing with Kyrie too, is that although he hasn't been injured more, he probably has been injured more in a certain I mean, Kyrie's injuries started adding up so young in his career, where CP3 it really didn't start hitting him I think until like he was 24. And then even then he kind of bounced back, and it wasn't until later in those Los Angeles days where he's had consistent injuries. But again, Kyrie's been getting injured in a shorter amount of span, and it started adding up a little bit quicker. But the biggest thing with Chris Paul is, again, I mean, his role has changed, obviously, from going to Houston to Los Angeles. But I still look at him as a one of the best point guards, not only of right now, but of all time.
You say the word point guard, and he does everything that you think about. Like he's everything.
He's the best true point guard.
Yeah, if you want to use that phrase, in fine. Like that is exactly what Chris Paul is, and I think that's his veteran leadership, his ability. Like I know he hasn't won it yet, but he's been in the playoffs consistently. He's been the guy on a team, and now he is a second guy, and that transition down to running alongside James Harden and supporting him. And at times you saw, I mean, the difference in that series in the playoffs this year was Chris Paul not being there. If he was there, Golden State doesn't win a championship. I'll say it. Like Golden State fans can get all pissy and be like, "But what about if who got injured on Golden State?"
You're talking about
Iguodala. Yeah. What if he didn't get injured? I don't fucking care.
Let's Chris Paul if Chris Paul didn't get injured, they would have lost that series.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like that's why Chris Paul to me is more important because I watched Boston play, and Scary Terry lived above and beyond reputation in the end of the season and in the playoffs where Kyrie wasn't available, and that makes me go, I know Kyrie's good, but I've seen players in Boston play well to a system. Kyrie's more clutch than anyone I've ever seen, but Boston in that series.
And I want to bring that up because obviously we look at offensively, Kyrie's at least a better scorer. And then Chris Paul is a better passer. We know that.
And defender.
But that's what I want to bring up with defender. Is we look at Chris Paul, he's getting older, which means he's getting a little bit slower. He's not able to be as great as a defender as he was. Typically he was around that 3.2 defensive win share range. Last year was at 2.7. Kyrie has never been seen as a great defender. He had a defensive win share of 2.7 last year. Now, we talk about Boston, how that changes players. Now, does Kyrie being a part of a team defense and a team dynamic like Boston kind of close that gap? And maybe that's, and Ricky, would that mean why, that's why you're kind of putting him over?
I'm looking at it, though, and I'm looking back 2016, I had Steph, Russ, Kyrie as my top three. Last year, I had Steph, Russ, Isaiah, who was a Celtic. Now I have Steph, Russ, the Celtic, Kyrie. Maybe I just like the Celtic system and what they do for their point guards.
Honestly, it works. Like they got all them wangs out there. They can switch on anything.
All them wangs.
It is impressive what Brad Stevens is doing. No denying that. But I think you're right. Like it at some point comes down to, in that system, you can have point guards succeed above what we would expect them to. I'm okay saying that.
I just want to say real quick, I had Isaiah Thomas the lowest last year at 6. So
cool. He put up like 30 points a game and like deserved his ranking. No one could have seen the fact that his hip was like made out of porcelain. So.
I did. I had him above Damian Lillard.
Yeah, you had him at 6. You definitely you called that one.
Damian Lillard.
Hey, that's the bank. Like, yikes. Get out of here.
But with Kyrie, the other expectation that we would bring up is with Gordon Hayward coming back, with the emergence of Jason Tatum in the playoffs, with Jaylen Brown obviously getting older. They still even had Terry Rozier as well. Will his point differential take that much of a hit? Because again, he was only scored 24 last year. That was a dip from Cleveland as well. They have a lot of scorers on this team. What is the expectation for Kyrie Irving this year?
The expectation is get to the finals. Like that's the only thing that this team should be thinking about is getting to the finals. Like I know we talk about with most of these guys,
individual stats.
Points? Yeah, with the Celtics, it don't matter. Like they've got players that can play for days. There's going to be different games where, like, maybe JT's the leading scorer this year. Maybe Kyrie's the leading scorer this game. The main thing for them is getting to the finals out of the weak East now that LeBron's in the West.
I swear to God, if you say weak East like 18 more times this offseason, I'm going to lose my shit.
I'm going to keep saying it.
Keep a counter, everybody at home.
I'm going to lose my shit.
Final thing, though, Kyrie.
Kyrie's also not a leader. I'll just say that. He ain't. And Chris Paul is.
You want to back that up?
The fact that there's a...
Some bold stuff.
Yeah, sure. I'll back that up.
Kyrie's agent wasn't about to be like, oh, wow, this channel's really great.
Kyrie wants to be the man.
We're gonna get Kyrie onto an interview for the Fast Break podcast, and then
prove me wrong, Kyrie.
Watch us here, and we're just like
all these rumors about you wanting to leave town and not be the guy on your team. And well, let's take a look. You were on a terrible Cleveland team, and you were, the guy, and you guys couldn't win more than 23 games or something. And then LeBron James comes back. Your second fiddle, and obviously no one's going to outshine LeBron James, but like you still could have been a leader. Like we saw in the locker room, guys like Richard Jefferson and Channing Frye were more leaders than Kyrie Irving was on that team. You have a young guy who is vocal, but at the same time, if he's not being a good leader for the team, like what are you adding to that team? And then he goes to Boston, and you look at that Boston team, and I feel like that team is not quite the put your soul in a jar as the San Antonio Spurs are, But again, you look at that team, and it's a bunch of young kids. And if you had a chance last year to cement yourself as the guy, and the funny thing is it's Al Horford's the guy. It's Gordon Hayward on the bench.
Brad Stevens is the guy.
Well, that's the truth. That's the truth there.
And that's the one thing I find funny is first off with the
but now
the whole leader thing.
Yeah.
One thing
Kyrie Irving has never said, "I want to be a leader." He
said,
has said, "I want to be the guy." And the thing
is the
I
guy
find,
not inherently the leader?
The one thing I will say is when you say, "Oh, well, you were the guy and you didn't win games," Cavalier management sucks. The ownership sucks. We know that without LeBron, the Cavs suck usually. So, I mean, that I'm not putting all on Kyrie, but I just find funny, he goes to Boston, I'm going to be the guy. Not only are the younger guys, like he's injured this year and the younger guys get experience this year to where they develop. Really, you look at that team and it's like, it's not your team, Kyrie. It's Brad Stevens' team.
One thing I want to throw out there, though, is I think it's Brad Stevens' team. I agree with that. But, Dave, to your point of winning and losing and what that means, in the 60 games that Kyrie played, Boston was 41-19. So, I mean, they were winning with him out on the floor.
And without him out there.
Without that, I will have to look that up.
I want to say winning percentage is about the same.
What's 41 minus 19?
I don't know. I'm not good at math on the show. I don't do it live.
We don't have time for math.
You do that. I'm gonna keep talking about how the fact that even though he wants to be a leader, and now we're getting these trade rumors, or not trade rumors, but rumors about him leaving.
Wants to go to New York.
Go to New York now. Go play with Jimmy Butler. Go get myself another team. Like, what is it with him?
But is
he's
that
on
him
the
coming
best
out?
team in the
I
East.
don't trust stuff like that.
People will throw out Brooklyn as well because they're in the same area.
Of course, totally counts. Totally counts.
Jay-Z.
The point being, like, and you're right. He hasn't said anything, but the fact that he hasn't made any efforts to look to a long-term deal with the Boston Celtics, don't you find that concerning at all?
We also haven't heard anything that they've reached out and started negotiating with him. I at least haven't heard that.
I'm just saying, other players have been like, I want to play here my life. I would do anything. The DeMar DeRozans of the world. I'm just saying, there's a different precedent.
Maybe he's just not DeMar.
I'm trying to figure it out.
Maybe the earth is flat.
It looks like they did have...
It's not, but okay.
At least in the regular season, I mean, they probably had a very similar win percentage.
I think it was, yeah.
It was close. They were 4-2, 4-2 before he got injured, and was sitting out, and then they lost, and then went on a 6-7 game win streak. Then lost twice, then won, then lost twice, then won. So. It looks like they probably would figure out around 68% win percentage, which was what they were with Kyrie. But again, even then, in wins, Kyrie had an offensive rating of 120 and a defensive rating of 103.
That's incredibly impressive.
It's stupid. So Kyrie was amazing when they were winning games. So Kyrie definitely
comes down to intangibles when we're in the top four, though.
He had a factor. In what this team did, and when he was playing well, they were winning games.
Yeah.
And you're right, though. I mean, Chris Paul is more of a leader, and I can't argue that. And now I don't know if anyone else can be. Who put Steve Curry? Why is Steve Curry on my thing?
I have no idea.
I don't know.
Where do you see Steve Curry at?
Look at my list. It says Steve Curry instead of Steph.
I don't see that.
Yeah, I don't see it either.
Oh, okay.
You must have typed that.
Maybe you
Steve.
just typed it
Weird.
and then didn't click out of it.
I don't remember saying Steve Curry. Anyways.
That's the new coach, Steve Curry.
But with Chris Paul, I don't think anyone on this list is as big as a leader as Chris Paul is.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's going to wrap it up. Well, we went a little bit over.
We didn't even talk about Steph or Russ, but that's pretty self-explanatory.
Do we need to?
No, we don't.
The sequel was where Steph Curry is is a better player than
everyone. He's a point guard.
So,
but at least Russ shut down. He shut down Ricky Rubio. At least he got what he wanted.
Yeah. All right. Anyways, that's going to wrap up the point guard rankings. We'll be back next week without Dave for the shooting guard rankings. Let us know if we should make any changes to at least the way we do this, not to the podcast. I know everyone's like, get rid of Ricky. It's like, no, we're best friends.
We got rid of Sean for a week.
Yeah, we got 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
And we did get rid of Ricky at the start of the year last year, and it didn't go well. So too bad. But let us know, at least with the positional rankings, how we could make it possibly more entertaining. Let us know down in the comments below. But that's going to do it for us here on the Fast Break Podcast. we want to first remind you to rate us 5 stars on iTunes if you feel so kindly. It's a massive help to us. Also, don't forget to check out mostvaluablepodcast.com so you don't miss any of the content that we're posting. As well, if you want to be on Most Valuable Podcast and you want to check out our store, you can go buy a t-shirt from us, and also check out patreon.com/mostvaluablepodcast. I think Jake will be joining us soon. He's giddy to be on his podcast again. We're excited to have him. And I think we got Bill coming up, right? Bill
was just on.
Bill was just on. We are
Damn it.
rescheduling all the
I miss
patrons
Bill.
soon.
Well, we'll get people on, and August is gonna be a fun month.
You missed Z and Bill.
I did. So shout out to Z and Bill. I missed you. But anyways, don't forget to check out patreon.com if you want to be on a podcast. But for Dave Oster, Ricky Widmer, I'm Sean Anderson. We'll see you next time.